So thank you everybody, I'm Jonathan Smith, as Alicia said, and I'm going to speak to you really fast for the next 5 minutes about one of the themes of today's Unconvention, which is the future. And specifically I'm going to home in on one of the changes that Marianne mentioned, which is consumer-directed care, what it means for the sector, and what are the implications of what we should do about it. So what is consumer-directed care? Well, back in the old days, a million years ago, what used to happen was you'd have a consumer who might wake up in the morning and they might say, okay, I've got a bit of a problem. And they might, this guy here, something's happened to his head. He's turned into a perfect sphere, he's lost his eyes, his nose, his mouth, he doesn't know what to do. So he goes to a government department, maybe the Health Department or Disability Services Commission, and he says, can you help me? And they say, yes, we can, because over here, there's a not-for-profit, we provide them with funding, so we'll give you a referral, you go over and see them, they'll provide you with some services, and everything will be lovely. Now the thing to notice about this is that the financial relationship, the financial transaction, occurs between the government and the not-for-profit. The consumer does not get a look in that arrangement. And that is the old way of doing things, and it's been like that for as long as anyone can remember. Now, under the new program, under consumer-directed care, that's turned on its head. And what happens there is that the government provides the funding directly to the consumer. Not literally, they don't give them a big wheelbarrow full of cash, they provide them with a funding package, and then they say, right, now you go off and you figure out how you're going to spend that money. And this changes everything, because this means that the consumer now has some choices. They might say, well, I'll have a little bit of service from over there, I'll have a little bit of service from over there, and this opens up a whole realm of different possibilities. It also means that there's more competition occurring. Now, on the face of it, this looks like a really good thing because it helps to get the consumers away from what people often talk about as this kind of passive welfare-dependent state. They're now participating more, they're making more decisions, they're participating in their own choices about their own recovery and their own care. So on the face of it, this seems like a really good thing. Now, in practice, it's not always quite that simple, but fundamentally, at least ideologically, big tick, empowering consumers is a wonderful thing. Now, there are other aspects of this that are more contentious. So by encouraging organisations to be more competitive, you create this sort of free market situation, or that's the idea, that you try to create a situation that's like a market. And the idea behind this is that the organisations behave like businesses, they compete with each other, and that leads them to innovate, and hopefully that results in a better result for the consumer. Now, this is a contested idea. We don't have time to go into the details and the ins and outs of whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. I just need to note that it is contested, but nevertheless, it's happening, and it's something we have to deal with. So what does that mean for us? Well, fundamentally, if not-for-profits are encouraged to behave more like businesses, that means they have to deal with some problems that businesses deal with all the time that not-for-profits are not used to dealing with. And one of those, I'm going to say, is cash flow. Now, if you're a not-for-profit, you're used to getting your funding in nice, fairly reliable chunks. You get a nice big bit of funding every 6, 12 months, whatever, and then you spend it. And sometimes you're under pressure to spend all of it, otherwise the government takes some back. So if you're in business, it's the opposite of that. Anytime you want to do something new, you put on new staff, maybe you start a new program, anything like that, you pay for that out of your back pocket. And all this bit on the line here, how do you fund that? That's a dead weight loss. Do you go to the bank to get a loan? Do you go to the stock market? Do you bring in an investor? How do you do that? So this is a problem that in business you're really used to dealing with. Not-for-profits are going to need to start thinking about that. So cash flow. Second thing, supply and demand. If customers have more choice, then how many customers are you going to have on any given day? If you don't know the answer to that question, then that means you need to be a little more flexible in your service delivery. You might need to scale your delivery up and down really fast to respond to the demand that you're facing at that moment and to be responsive to the needs of those customers. That's hard to do if you're a not-for-profit, if you're dealing with something like an award or an enterprise bargaining agreement, which is very much tied to that old paradigm and that old way of doing things. So now you need to get a little bit more creative and think, well, what's our delivery model and how can we be more flexible? So that's the second thing. We talked about cash flow, we talked about demand management. The third thing I'm going to put you is size. What is the right size of organisation for your sector and for your market segment? Now, there has been a school of thought around this that bigger is better. And that's predicated on the idea that there's a certain minimum size you have to get to basically deliver the service and break even. And that is true, that's absolutely true. But the argument is then, once you get past that break even point, you just head off into a nice blue ocean and everything's great, and the bigger you get, the more profitable you get. Now, it's not quite that simple. And I'll give you an example to prove this. Only 2 days ago, I had to go and visit a large not-for-profit, $100 million organisation that is in the middle of doing a restructure. And what was the problem there? The problem is that they've grown, but possibly they've grown in some ways that are not very helpful. Maybe they've added some layers of management and some executive up the top here, and that hasn't necessarily helped them. But down at the bottom, they still have the same number of customers, and they still are delivering a certain amount of funding per customer. So adding cost at the top doesn't necessarily equate to profit down the bottom. So I'd argue you can grow too much, and you can grow in the wrong types of ways. So those are my three things that I've mentioned: cash flow, demand management, and size. My challenge back to you is, what do you think? Do you agree with what I've just said, or are there other issues that I haven't mentioned? What do you think the challenges are? And more importantly, what are you in your organisations going to do about it? Now, hopefully, I've given you some things to think about, and if that's the case, I've done my job. Thank you very much for listening.